Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace, blessings, and mercy of Allah be with you wherever you are. Hello and welcome to this week's Open Dialogue. Tonight's discussion topic is on true love. We need to understand this fascinating concept of love. What does love mean? Is there healthy and unhealthy forms of love? As well as what is the Islamic point of view regarding Valentine's Day. To address these questions and many more, we are joined by two honorable guests. We have with us Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Syed Mohammad Razavi, who is the head of the Religious Advisory Board at the Shia Islamic Education Society in London, where he deals with family matters and resolves family disputes in accordance to the Islamic law. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Syed.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We are also joined by Syed Faizul Hassan Zaidi. Syed Faizul Hassan Zaidi has been an Islamic seminary student in the Hawza Ilmiya of Qom. He has studied for many years and currently he runs a higher education college. Assalamu alaikum, Syed, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation and joining us tonight to discuss this fascinating topic.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on this program, and I'm honored to be with our honorable host, Maulana Razavi, and yourself, Sister Zainab.
Thank you. Syed Razavi, we will start with you. I think before we delve into the topic, the main topic of tonight, which is to understand true love. It's also 22nd of Rajab today, and this day is known in the Indo-Pak culture, especially in the Indian subcontinent, to be the day when mu'mineen and believers do nazar and niyaz, and they do something called kunde. I would like you to explain the Islamic point of view and what do the ulama and maraji think of this nazar and niyaz that is presented on this day. And obviously, this Kundi niyaz is not only done and offered by the Shia Muslims, but also our brothers and sisters from the Sunni school of thought also believe in this and offer these niyaz with in a very hearty way.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I think we have a feedback from one of the sides. So whatever you were saying was being repeated in the background. So maybe the technical team can sort this out. Yeah, so we are in the month of Rajab. Month of Rajab is known to be the month of worship and expressing our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this year, Valentine Day comes in this month of love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what a better way to express our love to the one who deserves to be loved, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as far as 22nd of Rajab is concerned, it's more Indo-Pak kind of nazar. First of all, nazar, it's an Islamic tradition, and there are verses of Holy Quran. There are practices of prophets and imams and companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who have been referred in different verses of Holy Quran, and the nazar has been mentioned in Holy Quran. Regarding Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, apparently they became ill. So Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra Salatullah alayha both made a nazar to fast and give something in charity. So in practice also that exists. And a few days ago I gave a khutbah in the Haidri Islamic Center, and my khutbah was on this subject. So I was doing a Google search, and I was quite surprised to find that most of what is written and negated about 22nd of Rajab is from Ahl Sunnah sources. The Shia sources have very little discussed this subject, and the reason this has been discussed by them, it is because it is practiced by Sunni and Shia both in India and Pakistan. How did this Mr. Yani 22nd of Rajab start? Apparently, it started from Lucknow, a family or someone practicing, obviously, or someone who believed in Nazar and Niyaz, went through a difficulty or problem, and they promised another to cook something and feed some people and give the benefit to Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. So, with the affiliation of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, this nazar became uh, popular, because when one person does it, and especially if the dua is accepted, so word of mouth promoted within an year in Lucknow. This nazar became so popular that by next year so many houses and families, Sunni and Shia and even non-Muslims, were doing or taking part into it. So then it became more and more popular, and apart from Wahhabi Ahl Sunnah, all the Sunni Muslims respect Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. They respect Imam Jafar Sadiq as the teacher, direct and indirect teacher of all Sunni schools of thought. I mean, we believe that two of the fathers of Sunni school of thought were direct students of Imam Jafar Sadiq, and two others were indirect students of Imam Jafar Sadiq. So, of course, they also respect Imam Jafar Sadiq, and for them, Imam Jafar Sadiq is a member of family of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and making a nazar and promising nazar and doing something for the sake of thawab of them is not wrong. So, in Ahl Sunnah is quite commonly in India and Pakistan, 22nd of Rajab is observed. Although nowadays, because so many people do it, it is almost impossible to imagine to do 22nd of Rajab on the same day. So it has become gradually a tradition that this 22nd of Rajab could be done from the first Rajab to end of Rajab.
Of
I
course,
mean,
it's not a
and it's,
wajib. It's not,
yeah,
sorry
I
to
mean,
cut you. It's not wajib, and
no,
there is also rules regarding the nazar, shar'i nazar, right?
yeah, I was going to explain that as well. And the nazar is not, yeah, it becomes wajib, an obligation, if you do the nazar, if you make the nazar according to the shar'i principles that you have to. For example, we are sitting together and we just joke, if this happens, I will give uh, food to you, without saying, I make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala my witness, and uh, it has to be proper sigha, proper wording, that you obligate yourself to do that, with making Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as witness. And if you did the nazar with those conditions, then you have to pay kafara as well. And the kafara for missing the nazar is feeding 10 people, and if you're not able to feed 10 people, you should fast for 3 days. So that is, and some other scholars increase it to more than that.
Well, thank you
Anyway,
so much for explaining these technicalities regarding the niyaz of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam that believers do during these days. Let's enter into the topic straight away. Maulana Faizul Hassan, I'm going to come to you with the next question. And the question is, when we talk about love, how do we define love? Is this a feeling? Is it something physical? Is it something material? How do we define love? What is love?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's a very open question, let's say. love itself. We say love in a casual language as well. I love this, I hate this. And love itself has a deep meaning as well. What is love according to an Islamic perspective or from a Islamic view? We have different types of species. We have the humans, we have the jinns, and we have the angels. They all have the capacity to love. Jinns also love and hate. Human beings and anything that is made out of clay would have some potentiality of loving. So, what is this love? From a clay perspective, it's a feeling that is an abstract feeling which we cannot touch, we cannot see as an object, but we can see the actions of love. So, you won't see a physical embodiment of love, but what you will see is the actions of love, or the opposite of love, which is hate itself. So to understand love itself, we will have to also look at the opposite of love, which is hate. Now, how do we love as a biological being? We have some chemicals inside our body, some circuitry that works in our body, which gives us the feelings of love for whatever we are having an inclination or attraction towards. So this is the love from a biological perspective. But all species, from being a human being made out of clay, angels, and the jinns, they all have the capacity to love. But how they love is according to their creation. So jinns are made out of fire or and hot energy. So they will have some kind of system in their bodies of how they will show the affections of love itself. And then the angels as well, they also show a form of love, and how they show their love is probably through the light that they have been created by. So, in a short answer, this is what I understand from love and the research I've done in Raza about love.
Great. Syed Radawi, what does Islam say? Because today is 14th of February and it's celebrated in the Western cultures as something called Valentine's Day. What is the Islamic view regarding this day?
Uh, well, I read an article uh, about Valentine's Day. I mean, it's not even a Christian thing. It apparently existed before Christianity, and uh, one of the problems in Christianity is that they tried to adopt, just like Christmas. Christmas also was not, no, Christmas, commonly known, is not a day when Jesus Christ was born. They adopted a pagan celebration into Christianity, and same thing is about Valentine. Or there is another thing on in October. I forgot. Anyway,
Halloween.
huh?
Halloween.
Halloween, yeah, Halloween. These were all pagan traditions and practices, and because some Christian leaders could not confront and could not prevent their followers from practicing it, so they mingled it with some Christian ideology and tried to divert it from its original way of celebration. But it has still its roots. And same thing in Iran, for example. There are many, I mean, 99%, we can say, of the Iranians are Muslim, but they still have some traditions existing in their culture from Zoroastrian period, and they have tried to somehow bring it, give it an Islamic tone to it. So these things used to happen. As far as love is concerned, and regarding the person who after whom Valentine's Day is named, is also there is a lot of information available. Apparently, these are three different personalities, and what is common between all of them is that they were killed or executed or prosecuted, and and somehow they were involved in loving someone, or the Christians were not allowing the soldiers to get married, and there was a Christian father who went against the teachings and got secretly married Christian soldiers to their opposite sex, and he was discovered and he was killed, and because he was killed and executed, so later on that day was named after him, and the day of expressing love. So I, in my khutbah, suggested that why we should follow pagan practices. We should introduce the day of marriage of Fatima and Ali as our Valentine's Day, and Muslims should express their love on the day Hazrat Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib got married to each other, and that was the marriage that was uh, done with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what a better thing. Although we should not be copying what others do. If there is something good, we should accept it from anyone, even from a non-Muslim. But we should have our own way. For Imam Ali's day could be celebrated as Father's Day, or Bibi Fatima's day could be celebrated as Mother's Day, or Hazrat Abbas's day could be celebrated as Soldier's Day or Warrior's Day, or Imam Hussein's day. Imam Hussain could be remembered as Shuhada's Day, or Bibi Zainab could be remembered as the day of nurses and carers who take care of each other and others in our society. So we should bring Islamic color because we cannot go against human nature, and if we try to practice what human nature is with Islamic color and feedback and Islamic rules and regulations, it may even become mustahab and sawab.
Right. So it's a good point you made here that it's important to celebrate your own heroes and maintain your own culture, as well as adopting whatever good practices that we see that are taught generally for human beings. The importance of expressing love, of celebrating love, but it's also important to carry on and remembering our cultural heroes. Sayyid Faizul Hassan, if I come to you, you mentioned in your earlier answer that all creation of Allah have got the potential of expressing love. Now, what kinds of different forms of love are there? And the types of love, can it be good and bad? Can there be healthy and unhealthy love?
That's a very good question, and it's a very relevant question for the era that we're living in. As I believe humanity is going through a very, very dark ages, let's say. They don't have a correct understanding of true love. And especially us Muslims that are the believers of Allah, monotheistic religion, we follow the one God. Do we really understand the source of love? What is actual love, and what are we striving for? What is the aim of love here? As a human being, as Maulana expressed himself, there are different forms of love. For example, you have a love between a child and a parent. You have a love for the spouse. You have a love for this dunya. You have a love for the materialistic world that you live in. So there are different forms of attachments. Those attachments are considered as love. For example, the feelings that we get. Some people are addicted to this feeling of love, and some people are in love with the desires that they have. For example, the desire of whatever they desire. For example, someone desires ambition. Someone desires money, wealth. Someone desires power, and someone desires, sexual type of love, or the spouse type of love. So these are different loves, and they all are demanding from the human being. How do we centralize it? How do we focus it into one place? The only way to understand from an Islamic perspective is by understanding that the source of love is only one source. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you want to see the love of Allah, you see, because love, Allah is all hope, all love. When you want to see the love in its gradients, then you see Allah's love from a parent's view. You see love of Allah from a spouse's view. You see love from a child's view. You see love from the world that you live in. And these are different aspects of seeing Allah's love. So if you want to understand the love of Allah, you need to love your parents. You want to see how Allah is affectionate for you, then you see how your parents raised you, how they brought you up. And then when you see an orphan, you get a good idea of what this love is and those that are deprived of that love. This is where we need to understand the fine line is that behind all of this love, the true source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why on the day of judgment, when we will be standing on the day of resurrection, and even in the Quran it says that a mother, a suckling baby in the hands of in the arms of a mother, she will drop the baby down. Why would that be? What's the reason behind this? Because the true source of love was coming from God, not from the human being himself. We're just a vessel that transmits that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you see your parents loving you, this is just given in this dunya at this very moment, that you're seeing the expression of love of Allah from the parents. So those are the transmitters, the wasilas, and this is how we see the expression of love. But if we do not understand this, then we drown in the love of this dunya. We then see the source, not the source of love, the true source. We see the object, for example, spouse love. And when you see that as the only love, and you don't see that behind this there's another love that is guiding this, then you objectify that person or that object, and you make that into your God. And then that is your true love, and you are objectifying that as an idol. So that's where bad love comes into the picture. When you are no longer able to decipher what is true love and what is materialistic love. And how do you wean yourself out from the attractions that you have for the dunya itself? For example, in the Quran it says that a human being is made to love this dunya. And that's true, because the first thing that we see in this world is this world. This is our mother. And we are naturally attached to this world. But then this is not the love that God is talking about. It's the mind that we have. In the mind, that the picture we make, the imagination that we're in love with that imagination. That is the dunya that Allah is condemning. Do not love the dunya that we have made in our minds, rather than the love that Allah is providing through the right channels, and understanding that the source of the love is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where the good love and the bad love comes into play. When we're not able to identify that the source of love is Allah. And when we're not identifying this is where we are making the mistake.
Fascinating points you raised there. But following on from that, Syed Razavi, obviously halal relationships bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Romance and being kind and expressing love to your spouse or to your children is a form of worship, is a form of ibadah. But there's a technical point here. Now, Maulana Faizul Hassan talked about the passionate form of love, which I think what most of us would associate Valentine's Day with. Now, here the technical issue that I want to ask you is what happens if somebody falls in love with a na-mahram? And perhaps sometimes people don't know the rules of religion. How can they go about this matter or this issue that they are stuck with?
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of recently somebody sent a question from the Western world to مرجع تقليد النهوضات العلمية in Qom and Najaf, and he or she was trying to somehow justify male-female friendship and why Muslims cannot have girlfriend or boyfriend, and this. What the common answer that was given uh, to that is that there's nothing wrong in having being friendship, but the friendship is the beginning of future possible haram act. So why don't you kill the bud in early stages and don't let it reach to that point? If you are able to get your answers and problems solved and issues resolved without getting into that kind of thought that you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, you just you may have a colleague, you may have a classmate, you may have someone who is associated with you in work environment and that kind of environment. If you just keep it limited to that level, it wouldn't grow beyond that. So you start thinking that she is my girlfriend or he is my boyfriend, because when this thought comes into your mind that she's my girlfriend and he's my boyfriend, it would definitely bring shaitan into it. And knowingly or unknowingly, there are cases where people say, "Oh, I don't even think of him in that way," or "I don't even think of her in that way." But God knows better what is going on in the back of each of them, each of their minds. So Islam teaches us to kill the bud, kill the fitna in the bud, kill the possibility of doing wrong in the bud, and don't let it grow. So, and nowadays it has become even more easier with the existence of social media. People exchange messages, and sometimes they don't even exchange messages. They might even exchange some flowers or what do you call these images? Yeah, emoji or
Emojis.
emojis and this and that. Maybe some men do that innocently, although I wouldn't say that innocently. But it does create some kind of a spark, some kind of, especially in the ladies, man. Oh, he took care of me. He immediately replied to me. Even there are cases, for example, if you give a reply to someone uh, in the middle of night, it could cause problems. It could cause unnecessary attraction. I remember once I was in Latin America, and of course my telephone was on, and somebody sent a question, and she was somebody's wife, and I replied when I received the question. It was my morning there, so the husband of that lady picked on this, that look, Maulana replied the question of my wife after 1 o'clock 1 o'clock in the morning. So then I had to give explanation. Look, I was in another country where it was early in the morning, and so it does definitely create some kind of fitna. So we have to be aware of that. And what Islam teaches us is to kill the fitna in the bud.
Thank you. Following on from this, then, Sayyid Faizul Hassan, what is your thought, first of all, about what the Sayyid just mentioned here about how different things, especially with the social media and the fast communication methods nowadays, things can be misread and misinterpreted? And also, the other view is that why does love often, especially this kind of love that is celebrated on Valentine's Day and days like this, why does it always end up in, most of the time, it ends up in disappointment? Um, what is happening when people fall in love that later on they get disappointed and expectations are not fulfilled?
Um, a very good point. The reason is, I believe, is that we don't really understand what love is and what desires are. So we're infatuated with a person, and they are just some hormones and some kind of chemical reactions happening in our brain that is making us infatuated with that person. And when those hormones go away, we're back into a normal state, and then we're thinking, what the hell were we doing? Well, why did I make that decision? Why was I so much in love with that person? Well, we were not in love with that person. We were infatuated by that person due to hormonal imbalance or due to some kind of psychological issue that was going on during our time. And then we make those rash and quick decisions. Because one thing is that in the Quran it says that we are made weak. What does that mean? There's many meanings behind this. One of those meanings is that we have a lot of emotions inside us, a lot of things that we do not understand. And sometimes we are infatuated by some kind of action of some person. And as the Maulana said, we should always be on our guard. We should always be controlling our emotions and feelings, that we are not taken off guard and we're put into a situation where we now have these feelings, because these feelings don't come without control. We don't have control over this. It happens all of a sudden without informing us, and we just find out, oh, I'm kind of attracted to this person. How shall I get out of this? And this is where your jihad starts, where you have to pull yourself out of that trap by making sure you bring into yourself the rational mind, controlling those emotions and those feelings. And the only way to control those feelings is by fasting. The more you fast, the more you're able to control those urges and those desires. The problem is that we have made, uh, let's say, lustful feelings into love, where this is not the true case. And this is where the problem is, where we are considering desire and lust as love. While these are temporary feelings, they come and go, they are like waves. But love is something that is constant. You will always find it in any situation, in a high or a low situation. Love will always be constant. And this is where we're not able to differentiate. And the problem is lack of education, lack of upbringing, giving the right love from the parents. If you're not given the right love or attention, then these kind of imbalances do take place.
Thank you. Syed, then following on from this, what is the importance in Islam in regards to showing affection to your family and to your children or to your spouse? What is the sunnah and the seerah of the Holy Messenger of Allah and the Ahlebait in regards to this?
Yes, I mean, as Maulana mentioned as well, love has been misinterpreted wrong, especially with the existence of present corrupt society and media, the way they present it. Whether we are Muslim or not Muslim, it does affect. So, if we try to avoid the Western way of expressing love, or corrupt way of expressing love, then we should look for the true love. For example, when a father or mother uh, puts a better part of like chicken in the plate of child, and they eat less, or they give more, or they give quality food to their children, that is true love. Or in the same way, when a child rushes to help father and mother or sister or brother or relatives, or even a needy and poor, without any planning, and uh, supports them, that is true love. And that kind of love should develop between a spouse as well. They should be willing and rushing and thinking of helping each other and supporting each other. And of course, this cannot be nurtured without both sides helping and expressing their feelings and ways. And that's why in Islamic teachings it is extremely recommended that this can be implanted in the family from early stages of the family, especially when father and mother both show their love and affection to their children, and they don't shout at each other, they don't accuse each other, they are polite to each other. This develops true love in the mind of children, and they can have a healthy family later on. But if a child witnesses constantly from the pregnancy hitting and beating and shouting and screaming and abusive words and neglecting each other, the child will be developed with that kind of feeling, and it becomes a kind of chain of continuous abuse, because the child has suffered from the parents. The child doesn't know how to behave and deal with his own family in future. So the treatment is required in such cases.
Of course, you both mentioned Imam Ali alayhi salam and Lady Zahra salamullah alayha, and we often recite Hadith al-Kisa as believers whenever we gather. And Hadith al-Kisa has got very important message in how to address each other lovingly and how to greet one another. And that form of expression is taught by the Ahlebait alayhim salam. But moving on from this point, Sayyid Maulana Faizul Hassan, you mentioned earlier about the source of love and how being connected to the source of love can define good love and bad love. I would like you to expand a little bit more on this idea and explain to us about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to his creation.
Well, as Maulana was explaining, to understand true love and to understand and appreciate, one characteristic I believe a person should have is being grateful for what they have, appreciating what has been given to them. So if they have a half a glass, they don't see the glass half empty, but they see the glass half full, for example. This does actually then help in understanding and appreciating what Allah has given us. None of us have everything 100% in this dunya. While we're in this world, we would be lacking something. Someone would be lacking in some place, and someone would have something, and all of us have something that we all want. And some of us have something that the other one has that we want, and the other one sees something that we have that they want. So this is the world that we live in. We will never be satisfied with what we have or content with what we have. Now, where do we appreciate is the love, for example, a parent going out and taking their time and then serving that plate of chicken or whatever that is to the child without even asking anything back. That is what we're looking for. When Allah gave us everything, what we have is all from Allah. He didn't expect anything in return other than love. So for us to understand that, we need to appreciate what love is. And we have to come out from the love of lust, the love of this dunya, the love of all of this. And we have to come into the real picture of what is love. Love is a balance between attraction and a balance between sacrifice. Because love without sacrifice, it doesn't go hand. You cannot have love without sacrifice. If you love someone, you're ready to sacrifice for that person. And if you're not ready to sacrifice for that person, then there is a limitation to your love. Love always comes with pain. You cannot think of love as a bliss. Of course, the question that we discussed previously was about the spouse love. These feelings that we have in the beginning, they're like, if I give an example of someone riding a bike. When you don't know how to ride a bike, someone holds the bike from the back so you balance yourself. That is that push. So those feelings that we get in the beginning, they're just like that person who's holding the bike for you so that you can balance yourself on the bike and then you can ride on the bike. Unfortunately, what happens is that we want that balance still holding on to us, and we want to stick to that balance that is holding us, but that doesn't stay. Those feelings don't stay. They're just a push for us to be able to manage ourselves and have a constant love. Now, coming back to your question on good love and bad love. Bad love is when there is no sacrifice. There's only the selfish ego that is just wanting for itself everything. It's the ego that has not been tamed. It's the ego that has not been put into control, and it's wild at its heart. And then you see problems. For example, even in a spouse love, you'll see perhaps the husband might become violent, might become very controlling. Why is that? Because he's not able to control his ego, and he's got these phobias and fears where he thinks the spouse might leave him, or the spouse might cheat on him, or the spouse might do some other stuff, etc. And then you see this infatuation, this obsession, and all of that is part of love because the right ingredients were not given at the right time and not appreciating what they have. And that's why you see murders of passion happening. They're all because of love, but not understanding the love itself, because love is a very powerful emotion. And if you're not balanced, then you will be burning in love. For example, as we say, you'll be burning in the fire of love because you'll be making mistakes as you're not able to control that emotion. And that's when negative love comes into the picture. For example, people will kill one another for the wealth or the love of this dunya. Why? Because they love this dunya and they think this is end all and be all. And because it's end all and be all, they're ready to kill whoever it is that will uh, stop them from loving the dunya as much as possible that they can. And these are some kind of aspects that we need to look into. For example, us Muslims, this is not something that just Muslims are that have to go through this. All human beings have to go through this.
Very interesting answer there. Syed, I'll come to you. And regarding what was mentioned earlier in the program about the source of love. Now, as just as Maulana explained, that love is feelings plus balance of actions, and that is what true love is. So now the question is about the love of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, who is the source of all love. We've seen earthquake recently hitting Turkey and Syria, and a lot of people are asking questions. Does Allah love us? Does Allah hate us? Because of the suffering that people are going through, and how can Allah, if He's love us, if He loves His creation so much, allow so much destruction to happen? So, if you could shed a bit more light on this question that many are asking now.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, this is what happens each time when one of the major disasters take place or somebody suffers with difficulties and problems and calamities in this world. Um Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, uh, did not create this world as an eternal place of living, and He did not send to this world to live forever and permanently. And there is a very clear verse of Holy Quran, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So those who became victims of these kinds of disasters, they went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And according to some narration, they are rewarded the reward of a shaheed as well. I mean, even a person who dies under a wall is considered to be a shaheed. Of course, shuhada have different ranks. Only the shaheed which dies in the front line of battlefield is considered as the highest rank of shaheed, and any other person could be considered as shaheed as well, and they will certainly get reward of shaheed, but not the level of shaheed at the beginning of Islam or like that. Although there are some actions as a reward, this has been mentioned that if you do this act, you will get the reward of a shuhada of beginning of Islam. So we have to be careful what we do and how we do, and it entirely depends on our intentions and sincerity. Sometimes a person who has never committed sin in all his life and worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spent all his time on musalla and ibadat and worship may not get as much reward as a person who has committed sin and then sincerely repented, because the sincere repentance of this person is liked more than ritual ibadat and worship of someone who doesn't even bother to help someone else. So, love and care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is different, and we certainly pray for people who have suffered. I personally have been to cities and places in the world where almost every day earthquake comes, and the people of that part of the world have learned to live and survive in those circumstances. Islam has, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us aql and wisdom, and He has told us to learn from the mistakes and be careful before we what we do, and especially if we are building houses, and especially on the zone where earthquake may come, we have to be extra careful. I remember I was in Santiago, Chile. My apartment was on around 19th floor, and I slept at night, and in the morning when I woke up, my bed was in the middle of room, and the whole building was intact and nothing happened. And the earthquake was that, uh, uh, I mean, hard, and it didn't happen. So, why these things are happening in Muslim countries? Some people may ask why all these disasters in Muslim countries. Maybe there is corruption. Of course, we know that there is corruption. Recently, I mean, this in earthquake in Turkey, the engineer who was behind making the what do you call apartments in one of the towns which has almost lost every single building, and the engineer was the one that was one person, and he has been arrested. So why he did not take care of everything that he should have taken care of? So this all depends on our mistakes, our behavior, how we choose, where we choose to live, and also it also depends on how connected and informed we are about each other. And I mean, for example, those who have suffered and died have gone, and now it is a test for those who are helping them, how they are helping and how they are providing support. Are they, I mean, I had stories that the president of Turkey has announced anybody found stealing properties of the deceased in earthquake will be severely punished. So there are some people who are looking for an opportunity to somehow gain something in materialistic world. So this is a test. That was the test for them, those who died and suffered, and that it is a test for us how we react and how we take care of them. So this world is full of tests, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has promised that our eternal life, which is in the metaphysical dimension, uh, will depend on what we did and how we behaved in this world.
Those are important points you raised there, especially the point about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, is not responsible for our own mistakes and our own, for example, mistakes in construction and not fulfilling each other's rights properly after the disaster. But we are reaching the end of the program, so we have to wrap up soon. Syed, Faizul, Hassan, what I want you to answer is how we can connect our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time and be mindful of connecting to the source of love, and how we can also use our love in this world to serve us in the afterlife and in our next journey.
A very good question. To find true love and to stay connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to first differentiate the physical loves that we have for this dunya, and then understand what we have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once we differentiate these two things and we understand where we stand, only then we can connect with that divine love. Now, what does that mean? That means we need to understand that we have some desires in our body, and those desires lead us to many avenues. For example, the desire of having a house, materialistic house, for example, having properties, having a spouse, having children. We have love for all of these things that Allah has provided us. But we have to understand that these are all given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the owner of these things. We are just a vessel in this world that has been given the permission to use those resources. I'm breaking it down into very layman's terms. For example, our children are our resources, our spouse is our resources, the material stuff that Allah has given us is our resource, but they do not belong to us. Everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the source of all of those. Until we don't click into this in our mind, we will never understand the true source of love. Our problem is that we keep Allah separate and the materialistic world separate as well. Until we don't bring them together, we will never be able to taste the love of Allah. For example, if a doctor treats us, So we believe that the doctor is treating us, rather than we should understand that he's just a medium between Allah and our cure. So Allah is a true source of curing us, of healing us, but he's just a medium in between. Unfortunately, if the doctor is not able to cure us, we make the doctor our enemy, for example, or if he's not able to do the work. When we should understand that this doctor is just a medium and the cure and healing is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll see many examples where sometimes the same doctor heals one person but is not able to heal another person with the same medication, with the same symptoms, for example, because the source of healing and love and everything is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And until we don't understand this and bring this into our mind, we will not be able to understand this divine love. And this isn't, you're not able to earn this within a second or within a day. It has to be kept thinking on, kept pondering on, kept appreciating on this, and keep thinking. And how we do this is by reading our salah and fasting. These are two tools that do excel us towards loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you. And Syed, of course, as Maulana Faizul Hassan mentioned, that our relationships are an amana, are a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything goes back to God. But not only that, our heart, our own soul, our own body, our own mind and feelings are also an amana of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I would like you to also please make your concluding remark, and please make a dua for everybody who is suffered the earthquake during these days and for all the believers around the world after your concluding remarks.
Yes, I mean, everything belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing that we own. Even this program that we are having right now is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not become arrogant and proud that, oh, we as a human being are so intelligent that we can present a program. All three persons sitting there are in different parts of London, and we are showing a program. We should not be arrogant and proud of this. This would not be possible without Allah's blessings. I mean, I would not be able to talk and express what I'm saying without Allah's blessing. I would not be able to see and watch the program without Allah's blessing. Every single breath that we take is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this show, and we are so arrogant that we don't even recognize him. So he is showing extreme love, and we are disrespecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by not even recognizing that these whatever we have is his blessing. Without him we could not have anything, any progress, any even the sins. Those who commit greater sins are not committed without without blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah has blessed them with an ability, and they are abusing the God-given blessing and misusing it into wrong direction. I mean, one could do zina and one could do marriage. So you can imagine there is a very little difference between this and that. When everything is done within limits and within Islamic restrictions, and not only Islamic, within divine God-given rules and regulations, if we live according to God and submit ourselves to the will of God, then we are showing our true love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's
May
another
Allah give
topic
us
now. We started
may
saying
Allah
towards the end. You've
may
started
Allah, may
another
Allah
topic
give us
now that in spite of celebrations of love, marriage is on the decline. That's another topic for another day, inshallah.
inshallah.
But yes,
Inshallah.
please go ahead with the dua and the prayers for the believers.
May Allah bless us to recognize the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may Allah give us the tawfiq to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may Allah help us to promote the noble teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to everyone.
Ilahi Ameen. Thank you so much, Syed, for giving us your time. Thank you, Maulana Faizul Hassan, for joining us for this fascinating and interesting discussion and sharing your knowledge with us. Inshallah, I'm looking forward to hosting you again on this program.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for listening and for staying with us to the end. I will see you, inshallah.